All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a truly ambitious TV show concept called Shadows over Queen's Village. And honestly, it is a total masterclass in world building. You see how writer Claudia D. Reid takes a gritty, grounded reality, and then bam! She completely shatters it with this escalating supernatural mystery. It's just fascinating how the script uses its setting to dial up the tension. So picture this. You build a safe space from absolutely nothing, right? And then, out of nowhere, a Con Ed worker casually drops that the whole grid hiccuped. Meanwhile, some unseen force is just zeroing in on you. That is the core premise we're unpacking today. What actually happens when your hard-won sanctuary becomes a literal target?
Okay, moving into part 1. Welcome to Queen's Village and building a sanctuary.
To make any thriller really work, you first have to ground the audience, right? You need that comfort. Think about the contrast here. Pre-dawn Queens is this cold, reluctant awakening, gray-blue dark, grinding garbage trucks cold steel. But then you step inside Maggie T's tea shop, and it's this beacon of warm amber light and mismatched couches. It's literally a sanctuary from the concrete outside.
Now a little context on our lead. After losing her company, McReed Project X, to betrayal, Claudia rebuilt her life with pure grit. She took her last 200 grand and created this comeback space where she has absolute control. She is, as the quote says, a woman who owns this world. And you know, that's exactly why the impending loss of that control is going to be so terrifying.
And you've got to love this incredibly specific roster of regulars, the Breakfast Club at Maggie T's. You've got Solly, who's apparently been coughing since the Carter administration, and Chuck, a 9/11 survivor who always faces the door. Throw in Lady Diana, Chatty Catty, Lily Palmer, and Penny the Pitbull, and they establish this hypernormal, fiercely protected community rhythm.
Which brings us to Part 2, the first disturbance. Because a thriller thrives on violating a safe space, right? But it doesn't just start with monsters, it starts with the environment itself acting out of sync. In episode 1, a simple touch between Claudia and Officer David News yields this physical jolt. It's not just romance, well, maybe a little, but it's really destiny, foreshadowing, and the very first spark of an unnatural charge in the air. We see this unease escalate when this jittery young man visits the shop. He's reacting to a low hum, a vibration that literally no one else quite understands yet. He feels completely out of sync with the cozy tea shop, vibrating at his own frequency, and the second the lights flicker, he bolts. He knows something is coming way before anyone else does.
Notice how the ordinary is slowly being swallowed by the extraordinary here? We go from hypernormal morning routines, MTA train delays, local gossip, Penny the Pitbull, right into these nightly disruptions. Unexplained electrical hums, flickering lights, the neighborhood grid hiccuping. The writer is heavily juxtaposing the normal with the abnormal to show this creeping infection of the supernatural into everyday life.
So let's look at Part 3, the 3:12 a.m. pattern and how this builds into terrifying, synchronized escalation.
Because isolated incidents are spooky, sure, but a pattern? A pattern implies intent. 3:12 a.m. is the exact moment the supernatural clock syncs. Lady Diana's radio turns on, the grid flickers, and this tuning fork hum hits the neighborhood. It all happens across different locations at the exact same minute.
And the tension just skyrockets here because the grounded characters, especially someone like Chuck who never misses a detail, start to notice the pattern. They realize they're connecting dots. It completely removes that maybe I'm just imagining things safety net. It's not just a coincidence anymore, and the community itself is validating the dread.
Then the visual dread absolutely peaks. Out on the street, one by one, city cameras mechanically turn on their own to point directly at Maggie T's. Imagine walking out of your sanctuary and seeing the literal infrastructure of the city slowly pivoting to watch you. Why are they all pointed here? It is a deeply, deeply unsettling image.
And then David delivers the crushing realization. Something wants eyes on this place because Claudia is there. So the crucial point is that this entity, this watcher, is specifically looking for her. This isn't just some random haunting. It is targeted surveillance. This brings us to Part 4. Something is growing, the culmination of the escalating arc. Look at how methodically this escalation is mapped out over the first 5 episodes. It tracks perfectly, from that initial physical jolt in Episode 1 to the hum and flicker in Episode 2, the warm glass and turning cameras in Episode 3, the 3:12 a.m. pattern in Episode 4, right up to literal fog and shadows rolling in by Episode 5. A single flicker transforms into a full-blown visitation.
By the time we hit episode 5, the entire neighborhood is waking up to the reality that something is visiting us. The Watcher has truly arrived, bringing the fog, the shadows, the fear. It's an undeniable presence now that has completely breached their borders.
And the writer brilliantly layers these massive, mythic concepts into the localized thriller. You've got the Watcher's prophecy, the sinking of the supernatural clock, the seed and pregnancy mystery with an immaculate conception undertone, and the whole neighborhood awakening. It perfectly strings the audience along without giving away all the answers at once. Which leads us to the end of episode 10, and this brilliantly ties everything together. Something is growing. The hum, the flickers, the tension, it all leads to this exact realization. It completely changes the context of the invasion. It's not just a haunting anymore. It is an incubation. It's the exact line that makes you want to scream at the TV.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, ask yourself, if you were in Claudia's shoes, watching those city cameras pivot towards your sanctuary, what would you do next? When the very place you built to protect yourself becomes the exact spot the darkness wants to be, is there anywhere left to hide? How do you even fight back? Definitely keep that in mind as you explore more of these incredible narratives.